What are some of the alternative revenue streams that you can build into your practice outside of the hearing device in order to grow your bottom line? That's what we're discussing in today's episode as I share 4 things that you can package and build into your practice that are things you're probably already doing in order to grow the core numbers that run through your practice. Roll the titles. Welcome to the Business of Hearing podcast, the #1 marketing and practice growth podcast for high-performing private practice hearing care leaders. It's Friday, and this is my end-of-week roundup of what's top of mind after 7 days of helping some of the world's best private practices to attract high-quality patients, fight the evil forces of manufacturer-owned chains, and be impossible to compete with. My name's Ollie Luke. Pull up a chair, pour yourself a drink, and let's have a chat. So welcome along to another episode of the Business of Hearing podcast. And today we're talking alternative revenue streams because, look, I was reading recently about Starbucks, right? And Starbucks revenue from coffee only makes up between 70 to 75% on average of their annual revenue, which is crazy, right? For a coffee company, if not the biggest coffee company in the world, for 20 to 25% of their revenue to not be to do with coffee is interesting. And we localize that and apply it to our industry. And how much of your revenue is from hearing devices? And the question is, like, what else could we build into our practice which gives us alternative revenue streams outside of patients upgrading or patients buying hearing technology? And that's the conversation I want to have and just share some thoughts, ideas, things I've seen other practices build in order to develop additional revenue streams outside of selling devices. So, look, I think let's dive straight into this. Like, we could riff about why this is important. I could share the beauty of diversification in terms of revenue sources, revenue streams, but let's just get into the foundation to this and we'll go through some of the key ones. Here's the key one that I see most practices building, having the most success, generating the most revenue with, and it's service plans, right? It's patient buys devices. It steps into a service plan. They get 3 years care, 4 years care, whatever it is. That then comes to an end. It's then moved the patient towards some form of ongoing service plan, whether monthly, whether annually. The service plan essentially doesn't include manufacturer warranty, but it says to Mr. or Mrs. Patient, you have any challenges, you need anything, we are here to support you as an individual to consistently help you to achieve better hearing. Like those service plans, if you can sell them efficiently and do a good job of packaging them, these were a really easy transition for the patients to make from being covered by the service plan they got when they bought devices through to ongoing service plans. Few considerations to be quite smart about this. Like, package them correctly. I would recommend that you have 2. One that's more of an essential one that's more advanced, so patient has decisions, because fundamentally, if you present the patient, say which one of these is right for you, they've got to choose one. If you say to the patient, do you want this? Yes or no then become the options. So always lead with 2. And one thing I'd be considering and potentially building into place right now is turning this into a monthly expense rather than an annual expense. A couple of reasons for that, but fundamentally, you collect more money and it's easier. And what I mean by that is when you sell an annual service plan, when it reaches that 12-month mark, the patient has got to remake a decision. It builds resistance. They've then got to go, okay, do I want this again? Do I want to spend another several $100s? Oh, I'm not too sure. They've got a decision to make again at month 12. And internally, you've then got admin. You've got, right, patients now come to the end of the service plan. We've got to get them in. We've got to try and see if they want to extend it. It just creates work down the line. If you do this monthly, it brings that cost down significantly. Like the perceived value, not the perceived value is just as high, but the monthly kind of the feel of making that payment every month is minimized. Let's say it's $30-40 a month. And then it rolls, right? There's no end date on it. This is not for 12 months. This is a rolling monthly fee. And what will happen in most cases is the patient will spend significantly more than they would have on an annual because it will just continue to roll. They'll benefit from the service they're getting. And only when they say stop or when they step into new technology will that come to an end. Essentially, you'll collect far more money with less resistance, less friction, less admin internally. And it can all be done on a credit card subscription to make it really easy. If you don't know how to set up a credit card subscription, software called Stripe, Stripe.com, and that will allow you to import a patient's credit card, set up a monthly subscription, manage it nice and easy. If the card expires, deal with it. It will notify you. super, super easy, and it's one of the biggest payment processors on the planet for online transactions. So it's a solid, secure platform that will then just hold the money and then drop it into your bank. So sorry to interrupt this episode, a real quick one. What are you doing on October 29, which is this coming Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern? Because I'm hosting a training and I think you should join me. We're talking Apple, how to simultaneously play defense and offense against everything that's going on, and the 9 steps to go from unknown to well-known in your community. If you fancy joining us, it's orangeandgrey.com/invitation, and you can register, and I shall see you there. Back to the episode. But that is one revenue stream you can do a very, very good job with. And I've said this before, but I will say it again. If you can do a good job while the service plan is intact from when the patient bought devices, and you can allow them to understand all the value they're getting as part of that service plan through those fictitious invoices that we discussed, where the patient walks away at the end of every appointment seeing how much that appointment would have cost if they weren't covered by a service plan, it'll ensure that when their service plan comes to an end and you present the options to the patient of saying, from here, we've got a few options. You can step into new technology and get a brand new service plan. You can step into an extended service plan where we'll continue to have your back through this for your existing devices, or you can pay out of pocket for future appointments. If the work's been done over here, it will ensure that decision is far easier for the patient to go, I need an extended service plan, or I need new technology with new service plan, because the perceived value of that is heightened. But that is a good, solid additional revenue stream. Here's a second one. Performance revamp appointments. Now, look, we've all seen the pretty alarming data of how many people that wear hearing devices are unsatisfied with them. There's a lot of bad fitting, bad practice, bad work that's being done from a lot of private practices and a lot of big groups, right? And it means there's a lot of people in the marketplace that are in need of good hearing care. Somebody like yourself. The challenge they've got is for them to come to you and say, hey, I bought devices from one of your competitors 12 months ago and I'm unhappy. Can you now fix the problem that I've made by not coming to you in the first place? It's awkward, right? It's like, you know, if I called a car garage local to me and be like, hey, I need some help with a service for my car or a repair for my car, and then I decided to go to their cheaper competitor, and the cheaper competitor messed it up, and then for me to take it back to the garage that I should have gone to in the first place, I feel insanely awkward, uncomfortable, and a little bit embarrassed. And it's the same for people who are bought from Costco, bought from Big Change, tried to make a saving, but actually messed that up, for them to come to you and say, can you pick up the pieces and help me get this back on track? But if you can package something up that's positioned directly to them, like a performance revamp appointment, where you say, hey, we've got this appointment specifically for unhappy existing hearing aid wearers to get them from here to there over the course of 60, 90 minutes, and it's this fixed fee. If you can do that, you're building an offering that says we're open for business for people in this situation. If we know about half the people that wear hearing aids currently are unhappy, like that's a big group right there that you can market towards, that are already hearing aid wearers, have got over the emotional baggage and all the work in order to be ready and motivated to step into hearing technology. They just now need better performance. And if they can come to you for that, you've got a really strong marketing channel that nobody else is going after. And you can charge for that appointment at any rate you want, pretty much, given the need of somebody who spent a few $1,000s and is now considering throwing these things in the drawer. If they can spend $500, $600, $700 to get them where they need to be, then they'll probably be very motivated for that appointment. And we're seeing it more and more, right? Manufacturer-owned chain takes over a practice that was independent, that had a big heart, that always did the right things for their patients. The big group naturally changes the staff, rolls in all these big corporate policies, and the heart and soul gets ripped out of that practice. Some of those patients are like, hey, I don't want this. I was happy with like the hands-on care where I had time with my provider. They're looking for alternatives, and this will be a great way to attract them and build an extra revenue stream into your practice. Third one, which can be aligned to that, is adoption plans. Could you have a way that an existing hearing aid wearer could become your patient and step into pretty much an annual service plan once again? A way that they can say, I bought my devices from your competitor, but now I want to be yours. Can you help take care of me? Can I come to you for my challenges? Can I be your patient going forward? Can you build an adoption plan that essentially says, yep, no worries. For this monthly fee, we got your back. Anything you need, come to us for your preventative maintenance checks, cleaning checks, annual evals, etc. We have got you. Like, that would be a wonderful way to build an extra revenue stream in and go after that big chunk of the market that are unsatisfied hearing aid wearers. And what we see with most of our Inner Circle members is they go after that market and they have the performance revamp appointment and the adoption plan offerings next to each other. And if you price it correctly, the performance revamp and adoption plan, there's a few $100s between them. That means anybody that's interested in a performance revamp, it logically makes sense to step into the adoption plan, given that the performance revamp is the kickoff appointment typically for the adoption plan. So there are like 3 fundamental ways that you can build extra revenue into your practice. I have got a 4th here. And here's the 4th. Alternative options for a hearing evaluation. And I've had some heat for this in the past. And let me be really clear here. This is not me making an audiological standpoint. I am not qualified to do so. I'm looking at this very granularly through the marketing lens. But if a patient has multiple options for the type of hearing eval that they can have, then they've got options to potentially give you more money for you to package up and provide them with additional service. And what do I mean by that? I essentially mean patient calls and says, I want a hearing test. It's like, okay, do you want our standard evaluation or do you want our advanced? And give it a fancy name, but we'll call it advanced for the purpose of this. And the patient says, well, what are the differences? You know, like for our standard, we just do this, this, and this. For our advanced, we do this, 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 and this. Patient then makes a decision. But if you can give them 2 options fundamentally, and like, do you want the basic or do you want the advanced? Then essentially you're allowing them to spend more money with you for the itch they wanted to scratch and for the purpose and the objective they wanted to achieve. And it's the same way anything, right? You go to a restaurant. I think this is a great one. If you go to a restaurant, if you ever sat down and they come to the table, they never say, do you want wine? They say, do you want white wine or red wine for the table? And they just give you 2 options. And when they give you 2 options, you go, your mind is like, I've got to choose one of them options. If they just say, do you want wine? The answer is like wine or no wine. And no is an easy decision to make. So the more you can offer 2 options in any area, the more it gives decision for them to make a choice that may provide you with extra revenue. And, you know, you're the hearing care professional here. So make the decision on how this works. Is there a standard evaluation that is the right choice for the majority? And is there an advanced one for people that also want every little box checked? Like they want the super advanced one. They're really concerned about their hearing. It's more of a severe hearing loss. They report these symptoms. You've got to do a lot more advanced testing. Like having those options there, I just feel is such an advantageous thing to do in order to collect you more revenue. So let's just back up a second as we go through these. We've got extended care plans and service plans. We've got a performance revamp appointment for existing hearing aid wearers. We've got an adoption plan for existing hearing aid wearers or people that have moved to the area and need a new provider. And then we've naturally got the 4th one we've just discussed. Like these are 4 ways that you can collect extra revenue. And I'm going to assume you do all these anyway, right? You could do all of these if a patient asks you to do them, but they're just not clean and they're not packaged and they're not articulated in a way that somebody knows that they exist and somebody can choose them. If a patient asks enough questions, it could prompt in your mind that, yep, we can do that, or we have something for that. But if it lives in your head or in your team's head and it's not documented, it's not there for somebody to see on your website or clean for everybody in your team in order to understand that as an option, then naturally we can understand why it's not going to be chosen very often. The more you can package these up and show that these are offerings out there to the world and build process and training protocol for your team to offer these in certain environments, certain situations, the more you can build these into revenue streams that remove your reliance on hearing devices always being the core revenue that drops into your practice. These are wonderful ways to build bottom line without needing more providers, more patients. This is just doing more work with the patients and providers that you have to build these additional revenue streams. And I always find this stuff interesting, right? Because marketing in our industry is always, how do I get more patients? How do I get more patients? Being smart of going, how do we intelligently grow perceived value? How do we do all the smart things in order to collect more revenue in the areas that matter, or set the narrative that this needs to happen here, that makes the patient understand that they're getting advanced hearing care, getting far more than they're actually paying for, and build this expectation? the nicer you can collect more revenue, build a better practice that isn't always reliant on more people through the door. But hopefully this has been helpful. As always, I'll be back again next week with another episode where we'll jump into another juicy subject. See you then. And there we have it. Another episode has come to an end, and I have a quick favour to ask. If you have found this helpful, then who do you know who should listen to this podcast? I strongly believe a rising tide lifts all boats, and right now, private practice needs to stick together to fight these big, gormless groups and these manufacturer-owned Goliaths that are looking to take market share from us. Consider who should be listening, pass on the word about the Business of Hearing podcast, and I'll see you again next week.